This was brought to you by Franklin County Internet Gaming Society on YouTube and Facebook.
In almost every case, that beloved item is eventually eclipsed by some greater need or more potent magic. The possession once so cherished becomes obsolete, to be passed on to a cohort or even sold to finance the purchase of even more powerful items. What if that item, seemingly possessed of only minor power, was more than it seemed? What if it had a legendary history, a pageant of great deeds and wondrous abilities far outstripping anything it seems capable of now? Legacy items as treasure. Because legacy items initially look like standard magic items, you're free to sometimes add one to the treasure normally gained for defeating a particular threat at a given encounter level. Until its legacy powers have been unlocked, the item has no more apparent value than any author of its kind. The party members may or may not discover the true lineage of the item, but if they do not, you can always introduce more legacy items in the guise of ordinary treasure later in the game. The party might wrest an item of legacy from an NPC foe who wields it against them. Depending on whether it has unlocked any of the item's legacy abilities, that opponent can present a greater challenge than usual. If the foe has not yet unlocked the item, treat it as a normal part of that foe's equipment. If it has completed one or more legacy rituals, do not reduce the value of its equipment, even though these rituals represent additional costs. This would be the equivalent of taking treasure away from the PCs. Instead, adjust the NPC's challenge rating based on the number of legacy abilities to which it has access. These increases do not stack. Legacy abilities unlocked CR increase 2 or more least +1 2 or more lesser +2 2 or more greater +3. History. If a magic item is found to possess a long and distinguished history, there is a good chance that it is an item of legacy. Partial record provides the historical thread that the item's new wielder must follow to figure out how to awaken it to full power. A legacy item's history is an account of specific important events in its past that qualify it for legacy status. Spectacular defeats of horrific enemies, sudden reversals, and tragic losses all play some part in the original empowerment of a legacy item. Before the latest owner can uncover and perform the rituals necessary to unlock its wondrous abilities, he or she must learn this history. In game terms, every item of legacy requires increasingly difficult knowledge, history, checks to piece together the fragments of legend associated with it. Alternative methods of researching a legacy are discussed on page 205. Legacy rituals. Every legacy item's history contains a seed of opportunity that a new wielder can exploit. Through research, the wielder can learn what specific rites, procedures, or ceremonies are necessary to bond with the item. With each ritual completed, a new range of legacy abilities become available. For instance, a wielder of Storm Chaser's Cudgel, see page 163, who learns some of the enormous club's history can also learn the ritual of the Traceless Path. On completing the ritual and paying all associated costs, the wielder learns to use the weapon's Dazing Strike ability. In addition to any tasks required as part of the ritual, every legacy ritual has a substantile gold piece cost for materials, such as unguents, fine robes, or other expensive items, expended during its performance. A legacy item has up to 3 rituals associated with it, each one tied to a yet more obscure piece of its past. An item of particularly great importance has a more extensive history, and thus more associated rituals, than one with less influence on history. As a illustration, by F. Vowinkel. Anything has the potential to be a legacy item. 9. The Legacy. Chapter 1. Wielder discovers each piece of an item's story. He or she learns each of its legacy rituals. A legacy item's wielder who completes a given ritual immediately gains a bonus legacy feat, least legacy, lesser legacy, or greater legacy. For more information, see legacy feats on page 13. Each legacy feat is specific to the particular item whose connected ritual the wielder performs. For instance, if Edward completes the ritual of sanctification of darkness associated with his legacy weapon, Exordius, he gains the least legacy, Exordius, feat. From now on, he can use the weapon's least abilities, assuming he has attained a high enough level, but only when wielding Exordius. If he were to wield another item of legacy, the least legacy, Exordius, feat wouldn't allow him to use that item's least abilities. He'd first have to research the new weapon's history and perform its specific legacy rituals. Wielding an item of legacy. After having completed at least one of the legacy rituals of your item, you are entitled to use the abilities of that item available to a character of your level. That's right, you don't get them all at once. If you are 5th level and you have just earned the least legacy, Bloodcryer's Hammer, feat, you do not have access to abilities of the weapon keyed to characters of 6th level and higher. However, as soon as you attain another level in any class, bringing your Char Actor level to 6th, you can use the Earthseeker ability of Bloodcryer's Hammer, see the weapon's description on page 29. Unless otherwise specified, an item of legacy confers a given ability as long as you are wearing or carrying it on your person. Some abilities, however, require that you wield, gesture with, or in some way actively use the item. Such abilities' descriptions state this specifically. Losing possession of the item immediately removes all legacy benefits. Personal costs. In addition to performing a ritual and paying its GP cost, you must pay personal costs to use a legacy item's ability. All items of legacy exact substantial personal costs, which represent the item's tapping into your vital energy to unlock its full potential. You must make this sacrifice willingly to forge the bond between wielder and item. Personal costs are permanent and can range from hit point loss to forfeiting spell slots. You must pay a personal cost immediately upon reaching the level at which it is assessed, after all other level-related adjustments. For example, if you are the wielder of Bloodcryer's Hammer, on reaching 6th level you immediately lose 4 hit points after determining your new hit point total. If you are unable to pay the cost, for example, because you do not have access to a required spell level, you do not gain that level's legacy ability or abilities until you can pay. Unlike legacy abilities, personal costs are assessed permanently, whether or not you have the item in your possession. The only way to recover a personal cost is to destroy or renounce the legacy item, see below. Renouncing a legacy. Perhaps the cost of wielding your legacy item is too high, or you have discovered a different item and no longer wish to wield the original one. If you wish, you can renounce your connection with a legacy item. This requires performing a 24-hour ritual that expends materials costing 1000 GP. On concluding the ritual, you lose all bonus legacy feats, least legacy, lesser legacy, greater legacy, you had previously gained for that item. For you, the item now has only its non-legacy properties, and you lose all legacy abilities you previously had access to. You recover any personal costs you previously paid, such as lost hit points or penal ties, but not any GP costs paid for legacy rituals. If you regain lost skill points, you must allocate them immediately. Treat this as if you were purchasing skill ranks for the last class in which you advanced a level. Damaging items of legacy are more resistant to damage than standard magic items, but they can be damaged and even destroyed. Even so, it's often possible to repair a broken legacy item, see Reforging legacy items, below. PQS. Summary: Discovering a legacy weapon. 1. Discover an interesting item. 2. Determine whether the item has a special history. 3. Research history and determine if it is an item of legacy. 4. Learn the legacy ritual to unlock the item's abilities. 5. Perform the ritual, pay required costs, and gain bonus legacy feat. PQS. 10. Chapter 1: The Legacy. As with any magic item, a legacy item doesn't need to make a saving throw unless it is unattended. It is specifically targeted by an effect, or its wielder rolls a natural 1 on a saving throw against a damaging effect. Legacy items always get a saving throw against spells that might deal damage to them, even attacks against which a non-magical item would normally get no chance to save. Legacy items use the same saving throw bonus for all saves, no matter what the type, fortitude, reflex, or will. A legacy item's saving throw bonus is +20. Even if a legacy item is damaged, whether because of a failed save or through direct physical attack, it is tougher than a standard magic item of the same sort. A legacy item's hardness is increased by 10, and its hit points are 50 or the total from materials and enhancements, whichever is higher. For instance, a legacy longsword with a +5 enhancement bonus has hardness 30, 10 for steel, +10 for the weep, once enhancement, and +10 for being an item of legacy. Its hit points total 55, 5 for the steel blade, +50 for the weapon's enhancement. A damaged legacy item continues to function, but once it is destroyed, its legacy abilities are lost. However, a destroyed legacy item always leaves a tangible remnant, the shards of a sword's blade, the metal-shod heels of a staff, and so on. Even a legacy item destroyed by a disintegrate spell leaves a remnant. This is an exception to the spell's printed effect. Legacy item against legacy item. When a legacy item is used to attack another legacy item, it ignores the additional 10 hardness that the attacked item has by virtue of its legacy status. In other words, it treats the opposing item as a standard magic item of the same sort for the purpose of dealing damage, though both items retain their plus 20 bonus on saving throws. Repairing legacy items. A legacy item that is damaged, but not destroyed, can be repaired using the craft skill, or with the make whole spell, just as if it were a non-magical item of the same sort. Destroyed legacy items must be reforged from their remnants, which requires much more effort, see below. If a legacy item is destroyed, you lose your connection to it, just as if you had renounced the item. For you it has only its non-legacy properties, and you lose all legacy abilities you previously had access to. You recover any personal costs you previously paid, such as lost hit points or penalties, but not any GP costs paid for legacy rituals. Reforging legacy items. Though wondrously tough, sometimes legacy items are destroyed through physical damage or magical means. But, as noted above, they always leave behind remnants. Be they shards of a blade, a ring's gemstone, or a few plates of loose armor, those remnants retain a residue of power that links them to the original item. Characters with the proper skill and knowledge can attempt to reforge the item from its remnants. Such an undertaking is often associated with an important quest, a great need, or some other compelling, campaign-related impetus. If scanned using Detect Magic, the remnants of a destroyed legacy item have a faint aura of no particular school. Obviously, the original wielder already knows what the remnants represent. Someone who doesn't realize their true nature could learn the remnants' history from clues found over the course of the campaign. This information is illustration by W. England. The fragments of an item of legacy have the potential to be forged anew. 11. The Legacy Chapter 1. Also available through the Legend Lore spell, as well as knowledge, history, or bardic knowledge checks. The check DC is equal to that required to learn the item's least legacy ritual. Once the remnants are recognized for what they are, a determined owner can attempt to restore the original legacy item from its fragments. Reforging by previous wielder. If you are a previous wielder of a now destroyed legacy item and wish to reforge it, you must repeat the highest legacy ritual, least, lesser, or greater, that you had previously completed for that item. You must again pay the GP cost of raw materials. Not more than 1 week before or after completing the ritual, you, or someone working on your behalf, must successfully repair the item as described above. Once the legacy item is reforged, it has the same connection to you as it did before it was destroyed. You regain lost legacy feats, and you immediately are again assessed any personal costs. Reforging by new wielder. If you discover the remnants of a legacy item and have identified them, you must make another knowledge, history, check to learn the least legacy ritual associated with the item. Next, you must perform the least legacy ritual, paying all associated costs. Not more than 1 week before or after completing the ritual, you, or someone working on your behalf, must successfully repair the item as described above. Once the legacy item is reforged, you gain the least legacy feat associated with the item and have access to its least abilities, assuming you are of the requisite level and meet any other prerequisites. Permanent destruction. A legacy item is not easily destroyed, but if you are determined to erase it permanently, a method does exist. An example is the great quest required to destroy the One Ring. You must possess the item's remnants, which might require first destroying it. You then must perform the item's least legacy ritual, paying all associated costs, as though reforging it. However, at the end of this procedure, the remnants are permanently destroyed beyond recall. Legacy against legacy. It's the climax of the campaign. The hero and the archvillain face each other in mortal combat, and each wields an item of legacy. Special rules come into play during and after such momentous events. A legacy defeated. If you wield a legacy item and defeat the wielder of another legacy item in personal conflict, you gain an immediate gift from releasing some of that item's power. A flash of legacy power discharges from the defeated wielder's item and into your own. You are considered to have defeated the opposing wielder if you kill or render that wielder unconscious through a direct use of your legacy item, a blow from a weapon, a blast from a staff, and so on. Destroying the other wielder's legacy item is not in itself sufficient. Once you have defeated a legacy item wielder in this way, you can't fight and defeat that wielder to gain another gift until 1 full year has passed. Legacy against artifact. The wielder of a legacy item who defeats the wielder of an artifact gains the same flash of power that normally results from a legacy item defeating another legacy item. The reverse is also true. Legacy gifts. As soon as you defeat a legacy wielder, you gain your choice of one of the following gifts. Discover new legacy. You unlock a new tier of legacy abilities in your item. Effectively, you have enhancing an item of legacy. The power of a legacy item cannot be further enhanced using any regular process, such as magic or psionic item creation feats. However, spells or effects that temporarily alter a weapon, such as greater magic weapon or keen edge, work normally on weapons of legacy. The only way to permanently change a legacy item's abilities is through a new founding. For instance, the dagger devious, see page 67, offers only least abilities. And historical research reveals no further lineage that might unlock additional abilities. If you want to give this weapon further legacy powers, use the rules in Chapter 4, Founding Legacies, to found your own legacy and further empower the item with lesser abilities of your own design. As you progress in power, you might later choose to imbue it with greater legacy abilities or even epic legacy abilities. 12. Chapter 1 The Legacy. Completed a founding event, see page 180, for the item. You must still design and perform the necessary legacy rituals and pay the associated costs if you wish to use these newfound abilities. Learn Legacy. You instantly gain the knowledge of the next legacy ritual required to continue unlocking your item's abilities, as if you had succeeded on the required knowledge, history, check. In addition, when performing that ritual, you do not pay the GP cost of raw materials, although you must complete any other required tasks. After 30 days, the knowledge is lost. You must make the requisite knowledge check and spend the normal GP cost to learn and perform the ritual as normal. Legacy bonus. You are granted an inspiration, which takes the form of a floating plus 10 bonus available for the next 1 minute, 10 rounds. At any point during this time as an immediate action, see the sidebar on page 15, you can apply this bonus to a single attack roll, saving, throw, skill or ability check, or caster level check. Legacy healing. You regain hit points equal to 5 times the character level of the defeated foe. You also recover all ability damage, whether temporary or permanent. You can't gain more hit points than your normal maximum. Master Legacy. You are treated as 1 level higher for the purpose of accessing your item's legacy abilities, as if you had the Master Legacy feat, see page 15. The effect of this gift stacks with that of the feat but lasts for only 24 hours. Psionic Energy. You gain temporary power points equal to the level of the defeat foe. These extra power points last until used or until 24 hours elapse, whichever OC occurs first. Spell Energy. You recall 1 spell that you have cast during the past 24 hours. The spell must have been actually cast during that period. The recalled spell is stored in your mind as though prepared in the normal fashion. If the recalled spell requires material components, you must provide them. If you do not prepare spells to cast them, you instead regain 1 spell slot. The maximum level of spell restored is equal to half the character level of the defeated foe, maximum 9th.
This was brought to you by Franklin County Internet Gaming Society on YouTube and Facebook, Roger Hansen on Patreon, and Gaming with Infamous on Discord. Thanks for stopping by. Listen to our podcast on any of these platforms: Anchor, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify. Support us on Patreon, and check us out on Discord. All the links can be found in the video description below. We thank you for your participation. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. We love feedback.